It saddens me to do this, and I thought I wouldn't have to do this. I never saw myself doing this, but the time has come. The weekend is officially trash. I'll say it for you again. The weekend is officially trash. This is coming from someone who has been a huge fan of the weekend for easily a decade. Easily a decade. I first heard the weekend on Crew Love back in 2011. Heard Trilogy. I had Kissland the day it came out. I've been following him ever since. I've been to concerts. I've seen him at least 4 times. I've seen him 4 times in person. Traveled across the country to see the weekend. And I used to be so hype about the weekend when he dropped music. I used to be one of the only people around my area talking about the weekend, and even online, it wasn't a lot of people that was really into the weekend when he first came out, when he had a different sound and different look. So it saddens me to have to make this video on the day that a new Weeknd album comes out. When I first started to hear rumblings of the Dawn, I already knew that I wasn't going to be into this album. Just from the sheer success from After Hours and that 80s sound with Blinding Lights, I knew there was no way that he would go back to making anything remotely close to Trilogy, Kissland, My Dear Melancholy, whatever. I knew what this album was going to be before it even dropped. I didn't need to hear any samples, any teasers or whatever. I didn't need to hear any of that to know what this album was going to be. I knew it was going to be another 80s pop album. And that's exactly what it is. And it's unfortunate that he has strayed away. He has strayed so far away from the sound that made me and many others fall in love with him over. When you hear songs like Wicked Games, when you hear songs like, speaking of the Dawn, Till Dawn, off a Trilogy, probably my favorite Weeknd song. Those bonus tracks on Trilogy, Valerie, Till Dawn, Here Comes the Sun, and 28. Those are easily his top 5, definitely top 10 in his discography. But Till Dawn is probably my favorite song. The emotion, the storytelling, the instrumentation on projects like Trilogy, it baffles me and it saddens me to see how far he has strayed away from that, because that sound literally was perfect. And like it was perfect. It was perfect. It was unique. It was different. Nobody else is making music like that. It made you feel a certain way from the darkness of it and the lyrics. It made you want to figure out more about who this guy was as a person and why was he doing all of these things that he was talking about in his music. And it blew my mind away when I first heard Trilogy. It was unlike anything I've ever heard. I haven't heard anything like it since. And you can still go back to it to this day, and it will still. If you can relate to it, and if you're a certain person that likes certain type of music, it will it will give you chills. It was just it was the most beautiful body of work I've ever heard. And ever since Kissland, he's strayed a little further and further away from that sound. And even with Kissland, I think Kissland is his best studio album, just from the pure emotion of the album. The videos were pure art. Um, the lyrics were very deep and personal. It was about pain, heartbreak, figuring out who you are as a person. It was about growing and just experiencing a different phase in your life that we as fans really related to. It's a misunderstood album, and he's already talked about how people were expecting him. A certain group of people were expecting him to kind of shift into the pop mainstream already after the success of Trilogy, and then another group of people were expecting him to stay the same. And Kissland was kind of like a continuation of Trilogy. It sounded a little different sonically, but it was kind of it was different, but it was the same. The instrumentation was different. Um, how he structured the records were a little bit more different. They were a little bit more. They were structured a little bit more differently. But that didn't take away from it sounding like the Weeknd that we grew accustomed to loving. When I hear the Weeknd now, and again, I've been following the Weeknd since 2011. We're in what going in the second week of 2022. Um, when I hear the Weeknd now, I don't get that same feeling anymore. And it is because he watered down his sound so much to fit into that pop mainstream. And don't get me wrong, I like pop music. I don't like a lot of it, but I like pop music. When I was growing up, I used to like Justin Timberlake and NSYNC and um, different pop artists I heard on the radio. What set the Weeknd apart was he made you feel something that no a typical artist can't, because he went to some dark places that typical artists don't go. He went into some very dark places in his mind, in his stories, in his toxic tales that made us just feel like, wow, like this guy is bad. I thought I was bad. This guy is bad. Like, and what made it so beautiful was his voice. I saw this a long time ago. Someone said The Weeknd has the devil's lyrics with the angel's voice. The lyrics were so raw and 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 deep, and he was talking about getting girls high and running trains on them and leaving his girlfriend back home because he doesn't love her anymore. And it was just, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so an artist like Justin Timberlake or Usher can't make a song like that because they're not going to go that far with it. So I appreciated The Weeknd from the standpoint of his art was very different and unique. Fast forward, when you hear The Weeknd now, he still has the toxic lyrics. They're not as they're not as vulgar. They're not as descriptive. But he still has the toxic lyrics. But it's watered down for the radio. But he is using these 80s pop beats to carry his songs. And for me, that's a problem because The Weeknd used to be very good with his production. His music was not only good because of his lyrics, but it was because of his production. His production was dark, it was atmospheric, it was hazy. It took you to a different place. It was different. You didn't hear any R&B artists making songs over those type of instrumentals. The instrumentation on House of Balloons, Thursday, Echoes of Silence, and even Kissland, it was very different. And now he just gets on these 80s pop synth beats, which all sound the same, and everybody else is doing it. And it's not unique. It's not different. For one, the sound has already been done. So you're just going back into a time machine and trying to do a sound that's already been done. To me, that's corny. To me, when you're an artist, you're supposed to come out with something the world hasn't heard before. That's what makes you your own artist. As a painter, you're not going to paint in the same style as somebody else, because what will separate your work from their work? Nothing. So to me, The Weeknd doesn't have a unique sound anymore. He sounds, I feel like Justin Bieber could have did Blinding Lights. Justin Bieber could have did Blinding Lights. I don't feel like Justin Bieber could do Wicked Games. Bruno Mars could have did Blinding Lights. I don't feel like Bruno Mars could do a song like Echoes of Silence. That's the difference. So with how I've been following The Weeknd for so long, I've given him passes. With each album release that he's strayed away from his original sound, I've given him passes. I gave him a pass on Beat Behind the Madness. Cause I'm like, you know what? Go ahead, dude. Go ahead, try something different. Step out of your comfort zone. You know, put yourself out there. What Can't Feel My Face and earned it. I gave him a pass with Starboy. I really like Starboy. Has some skippable tracks, a little bloated, I like Starboy. Don't sound nothing like Trilogy or Kiss Lamb. I like Starboy. Excuse me. Getting over a cold. I give him pass with after hours. But DawnFM is trash.